you work for Jet the Engine, or?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, over there. I was thinking, kind of sense, where are we with WordPress knowledge? How do y'all feel?
No idea.
Little,
Little.
Ernest guys, I'm still trying to teach this guy how to log on.
I have successfully installed WordPress
Cool.
and then have done very minor things, but
Okay.
it's mostly by accident.
I like it.
I mean, the wizardry happens, which
Yeah.
is fine, but I wish to at least know why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Sure, okay. That makes sense.
But otherwise, WordPress seems to be, helps me a lot more along than I deserve.
I got hit with a YouTube ad yesterday for something called Dabu.
Okay.
Basically, they're trying to compete against WordPress for small, medium businesses.
Mm-hmm.
And their whole thing is, would you blow dry your hair with a leaf blower?
Depends on the situation.
How efficient is it? According to the video they had the guy doing it, it's really efficient. That hair was dry fast.
I bought about 8 websites this weekend and domains, and yesterday I had about 20 phone calls from India to help me with one of them. the exact same, like .us.
Yeah.
But not any of the others, just the .us. They wanted to. I was like, I was so mad yesterday.
I started buying all my domains on Google Domains just because they give you the free privacy thing. And so it's like, yeah, you don't have to pay the extra $3 or whatever it is GoDaddy charges you. So they don't know who bought the domain. So I don't get that spam.
Yeah, nice. The weird thing is that it was privacy. I had bought privacy with it, and
had you?
they
Still.
still.
Who knows?
But it was just weird that it was just the .us, not the .net.org. Yeah.
Is it Wordpress Meetup?
Yep, we are.
Cool. We'll grab some pizza and feel free to take a seat.
So where else are we, like, levels with WordPress? How people
Between
log in this
intermediate and
thing?
beginning.
Intermediate and beginning? Okay. Can you log in? Because honestly, that is, it sounds like a joke, but that is the hardest thing for people to start off with.
Yes.
It's not a joke. It is hard to log in.
Where do you find how to even log in? Is always,
It's like, are we logging into the cPanel to install it, or are we actually like logging into the WordPress? Like,
Yeah.
that's two. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
do we have like kind of people, site builders, people who are trying to build sites for themselves, or
Yeah.
anybody running their own server, doing like a VPS setup or anything? Cool, okay. Good to know as we talk about caching, what kinds of things to get into, what kinds of things would be interesting to you. So, yeah. Not expecting you to be running your own VPS by any stretch of the imagination. No, assume that's a career. I tried to throw in some stuff in case we got some kind of tech ops DevOps guy.
We get credit if we do, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
You can exercise a pizza.
I mean, I'm not even sure like if caching is something that I need or not. So it's like kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, not getting a million users of it a day. So, but I'm also not getting small amounts. So it's like even just thinking about the when and why you do caching before I get to the how.
You make any money off the
We're
website?
just about to get started, so that'll be great.
Is it like a business website?
It's a for a nonprofit company, but I mean it could be something that starts charging eventually. Right now it's like a two-sided market kind of thing. People come and they get connected to people and stuff like that. So it may become a membership site, but
See, I ask that because to me, if you're going to make business, you need caching. If you're going to make money, you need caching.
yeah.
If it's going to be any kind of business-driven thing, you got to make it fast. If it's a play thing that you're getting out there and you're sharing your latest
traffic.
If you're sharing your latest like Raspberry Pi build, okay,
If
don't
you want
stress
to
about it.
search traffic, you want caching.
Yeah,
For
that's
performance.
Yeah.
All right, we got a few more people coming in. That's great. I apologize for a bit smaller room. It's originally scheduled for tomorrow, and I didn't want to be here on Valentine's Day any more than anyone else did. So CapTech was generous enough to relocate us.
How many ugly looks did Kim give you?
You know, a lot. So, first and foremost, I'm going to do a very special thank you to Bill from San Marcos. He attended a Georgetown meetup, he's attending this one, and he provided a pizza for us. So it's very generous, and we're all very thankful. Today we're having a WordCamps, they call them lightning talks. So something quick, something to consume and spark your thoughts and learn a little bit, and then we're going to break out into open work sessions and conversation and collaboration with whatever you're looking for. It doesn't particularly have to be about caching, but if that is on your mind, then come talk to someone and we'll help you out as best we can. Our speaker tonight is Ryan Hoover. He works at WP Engine. He was one of the lead organizers for WordPress Austin, WordCamp Austin, and he's altogether terrific guy. So take it away, Ryan.
All right. Tonight we're going to talk about caching, which is how do you make your site faster. Basically, how do you stop your site from having to process all the same stuff over again. All right, so we can go a bunch of different directions with this talk. I want to go directions that help y'all. I'm going to go over kind of just really fast what happens in a page request when somebody tries to load your page. And then we can talk about different ways to cache different elements of it. We'll do deep dives in whatever piece we want, and we're sticking this to 15 minutes because caching is honestly an entire college course if you want it to be. But we're going to do this all in 15 minutes. All right, so we're going to do a little tour of what happens when you open up your browser and you say, take me to wpengine.com. Okay, I'm going to say wpengine.com because my job actually is WPEngine. I am our lead dev for the website, the main website. And so it's what I live and breathe every day, and it's hard for me to get my mind out of it. So I'm just going to say that word because otherwise I can't think about any other website. All right, so what happens when you try to load that page? Well, first off, the browser says, hey, I want this particular URL. Give me wpengine.com or give me supercoolnonprofit.org. And along with that, it sends some headers, some cookies and stuff. Like, you know, cookies and stuff that you always just click I agree on. Yeah, it sends those, and it kind of tells a little bit about who you are. So that goes off, it goes through the interweb tubes, gets into all kinds of DNS writing and that, which we're not going to go into right now. But it eventually lands on the server where you're hosting your website. That server says, oh, wow, this person wants to get supercoolnonprofit.org. I know where that website is at. That URL is supposed to go to WordPress. And so it sends that request over to WordPress. Real quick, if you're hosting something like HostGator or GoDaddy, you may have like 5 or 6 WordPress installs all kind of nested together. The server is smart enough to figure out which WordPress site to send it to. So they all act differently. Caching is different for all of them. Okay, so server sends it over to WordPress and says to WordPress, hey, this browser out here that just contacted me, it wants this URL with these query parameters, this path, and it has these cookies with it. WordPress then says, let me see. So they actually wanted supercoolnonprofit.org/category/fundraisers. Oh, and it starts thinking through and it uses what we call rewrite rules, which you probably said in the settings page. It says, okay, I know what that is. That's actually our archive page. That's the category page for that. I know what we need to do then. We're going to show them a whole bunch of category posts. WordPress figures out what it is that it wants to show you. So WordPress is like, okay, I got to get all the different posts that match this category. So it calls out to the database, and you've got a database running in the background on your server. It says, okay, so give me everything that I might need for this. And it says, give me all the different posts that match this particular category. And actually, WordPress gets a lot of bad rap because in a typical page load, it'll make at least 100 calls to the database. If you're doing good, you got it down to 50. I rarely see a site that's under 80 calls to the database on just a single page load. And this is also by far the slowest part of what happens on the server. All right, so WordPress gets back the information from the database. It says, okay, I got all these posts, I got all these fundraising posts. Now I got to create the HTML that's going to show on the page. So it uses your theme, it uses your plugins, it does all that, it crunches, PHP is processing, and it creates the HTML that the browser wants to show. So all of that HTML goes back to the browser. And WordPress says, okay, I got this HTML, now I'm going to send it back to that browser that originally asked for the page. So I got all that, basically just, it's a giant string. It's that body, like all the P tags and A tags and all that you've done, all that just goes back to the browser. Browser gets it back and says, so I just got this giant HTML file. As I'm looking through, it's actually got all these images at once and all these CSS files. And there's this thing called Revolution Slider. It's a Revolution Slider wants 18 different JavaScript files. And it also looks like it wants 3 different CSS files with it. So I got to go download all those files too, because I can't do this page without all that content. So the browser says, okay, Mr. HTML file, I'm going to read all of the CSS, all the JavaScript, and all the images. I'm going to go download all that stuff. Once it's all downloaded, Then it says, okay, I got all that stuff downloaded. Now I can finally do what's called paint the page, which is where it actually takes it and creates all the stuff that you see, the images, the pretty colors, the fonts, and the 80-point font and all that good stuff. That's a lot of steps, right? Okay, so there's a whole lot of pieces that move on through here. And what we're going to talk about in super quick terms is how do we try to cache that? How do we try to speed up this process? All right, so we've got all the different steps. We've got the browser requesting, the server gets a request, sends off to WordPress, WordPress gets the database, creates HTML, sends it back to the browser, and then the browser downloads the images and assets. About images and assets, I'm going to call static files. It's kind of what it's called in the jargon of websites. It's basically things that don't change. Your image doesn't change, and so it's a static file. I think they also would just like to stick to your clothes. I'm trying. Okay. You probably, if you talked about caching with anybody, they said, oh yeah, just install a caching plugin and you're done. It's so easy. Like W3 Total Cache is, I think, the biggest one still, the most popular. W3 Total Cache is a free one that's out on the WordPress.org repo. We can look at the settings for that too. It's super easy to use. It's almost kind of just a plug and play thing. You turn it on and you're actually doing pretty good. W3 Rock is a little bit higher end. It's a what we call a premium plugin. You pay, I think, $40 for it. It's not a bad deal, and it's actually a good plugin. It works well. Caching plugins, though, they're not the all-in-one solution because all they really target is the part where WordPress goes and queries the database and generates HTML. The part where WordPress gets the request and has to figure out, oh, this is the blog archive. Once it gets to that point, then W3 Total Cache says, I already got that page saved. You requested that one 15 minutes ago, and I know what that HTML is supposed to be. Don't worry about going to the database. Don't worry about trying to create HTML. Just here's my saved version where that page is supposed to be. Now go send that to the browser. That's what these caching plugins do. There's also minification plugins. Auto-Optimize is honestly one of my favorites. It's one of my go-tos whenever I create a site. I just install this. BWP Better WordPress Minify is another really good one. And then WP Dev has one called Hummingbird that does a good job. There's a few different out there, not quite as many as the others. But what they do is, honestly, they just work with HTML and the static files, your images and such. And so, not so much in terms of caching as in saving processing, but they make them smaller. They shrink them down. So if you've got, like, Revolution Slider asks for 17 different JavaScript files, Auto-Optimize will say, you know what? You wanted 17 files from this thing, you wanted 8 files from this thing. I'm just going to smush them all together into one big file, and that's all the browser has to download. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to strip out all the white space and stuff that it doesn't really need, because it's a computer, it doesn't care if it looks pretty. So it makes it small and tight, and it makes it easier for the browser to download. So these come into play when we talk about like caching and site speedups in a minute. Okay, those are our WordPress plugins. Those are things that you can just install and go. Quick note, I know we don't have any TechOps guys, but if you ever get talking to any of them, things that you might want to think about are things like called PHP OP cache. You'll also hear this referenced if you install a W3 Total Cache, they'll have this as one of the features you can turn on. Basically, all it does is that server and WordPress stuff where it's doing PHP functions, where it's doing all the calculations, it caches those. And you say, okay, I want to add up this giant array of 50 different numbers. And it says, oh, you know what? We just did that a little bit ago. I got this saved old PHP cache. Okay, we don't have to go add them up. Here's the answer. It's like looking backwards in your calculator stock tape. Big one, that wherever you're hosting your site, check and make sure if you can turn this feature on. Memcached. What it does is it caches your database queries. This is by far one of the best things you can do on the server level inside cPanel to speed up your site. What Memcache does is it takes all those big database queries of, hey, I want to go find out what all posts are supposed to show in my archive, and it says, okay, so take all those and try to figure out what's, like, it's say, you got those a few minutes ago, I remember what that was, and it gives it to you. The database is by far one of the slowest pieces of the back end that you can speed up with simple caching. And Memcached is really, on most cPanels and such, it's a plug and play thing. You turn it on and it just works. Okay. Another feature you might hear talked about is Varnish Cache. This usually doesn't come on things like HostGator or GoDaddy. If you have a managed WordPress solution, Kinsta, Pagely, WP Engine, that kind of thing, they've got Varnish Cache running for you. What Varnish Cache does is it basically takes the entire WordPress process and it says, screw WordPress, we already did this, I got this, all right. It's sitting way out here at the very beginning of the server. And it says, oh, you wanted that URL. Yeah, I just got that for this guy like 10 minutes ago. Look, here it is. Here's the entire HTML file that you needed. And so it skips over all the WordPress stuff. It actually totally mutes W3 total cache, which is why if you do have a managed host, they block it. I know W3 Engine, people like migrate over, like, you're turning off my caching plugins, I'm gonna be slow. Like, no, look. Varnish is going in the background, is handled for you. So that actually kind of trumps the caching plugins that are out there. Yeah.
Is that something we'd see in cPanel for most of the time?
Possibly you might see Varnish.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what can cause issues between Optimize and Varnish and how we can potentially see caching break?
Sometimes, yeah. Yeah. That gets, we can get into nuance. Anyway, we got a little troubleshooting thing at the end here we can get into. Okay, as we're going through caching, we've talked a lot about the server stuff. You can do plugins to like do the piece that renders HTML. You can do some stuff to try to minify the files. There's some server tools that you can do to try to speed up the processing on the server or the database and that. Something else you can do to speed up those images and JavaScript files and that is actually to throw them on what's called a CDN, or a content delivery network. These are becoming more and more popular. In fact, a lot of plugins offer for free. Jetpack uploads all your images for free. And I believe I just saw WP Smush, the paid version, does a CDN for free for your images. Yeah. Okay. So this is becoming like a standard offering for a lot of things.
I like Smush.
Smush is an awesome plugin. Yeah.
I've never paid for it though. Yeah.
Imagify is another one.
Imagify? I haven't used that one. You is not bad. I've had good luck with you. That was last week at Georgetown. We talked about images. So yeah, Bill in the back knows all about that. All right. So CDN, what it does is all those images and stuff that it's like whenever the browser says, hey, I want these different, like this big giant photo of our last fundraiser. Normally the browser has to go all the way over to your server to go download that. It has to go all the way through the inner tubes to download that. What the CDN does is it says, look, I've got little nodes all over the globe. Your server, I'm sitting in Texas, your server may be in England for all I know. So rather than having to go all the way across the pond to go download that file, CDN says, you're sitting in Texas. I got a little CDN node in Dallas. Just go to Dallas and download it. This actually happens routinely. And so CDNs are really great for global traffic, or really great if you're hosting somewhere and you figure out, hey, where all my customers are coming from actually aren't near where my website is hosted. Okay, so CDNs, they cache your static files. They're usually extra services that you add on. And yeah. Last little piece we'll talk about is a new offering that CDN companies are starting to come out with. Cloudflare is really the biggest one I know that offers this. It's called an edge server. Basically, it takes the entire process that we're doing, all the rendering the page, figuring out what page to load, hit the server, download the files, all that, and it says, nah, forget that. You know that little node that we had in Dallas? Just like Varnish kind of says, I got the HTML saved, it said that little node in Dallas says, I got this request 10 minutes ago, I got all of those files, I got the HTML, I got all the images right close to you, don't even worry about going to the server. In an edge server situation, when somebody requests your page, that request never even makes it to your website, to where you're hosting your website. It's all served out way what they call the edge. So it's an extra feature to pay for. If you really care about speed, or if this is something you think would really help the business, this is something to look into. Last little piece to mention, how are we doing time? Close, yeah. Last little piece to mention, browser caching. You, as a person with your laptop in front of you, love browser caching. This is great for you. You, as the people who are running a website, hate browser caching because it's a thorn in your side. Okay, what this is whenever you load a website, you pull up supercoolnonprofit.org, you load the home page. Your browser has to go and download all those images, all that CSS, all that JavaScript, and it downloads it and it saves it to your computer. You then go to the About page to learn a little bit more about them. Actually, the About page asks for all the same CSS and all the same JavaScript files. It wants the exact same ones because basically your site shares all those files. Every page on your site uses those. It also may even use some of the same images, especially like the logo in that. Your browser says, wait a minute, I just got that file. I don't have to go download it again. I just got it right here on the disk. I'll just use what's here. And so browser cache saves you a lot of time on that second, third, fourth, fifth load of a website. First load of the website is still going to be kind of slow because you got to download everything. But all those subsequent pages that you go to, browser cache makes them a lot faster. Okay, that's why you love it as a person browsing websites on your computer. Why you hate it as somebody who builds a website is Browser caching is one of the biggest reasons why we have bugs. Why clients come to us and say, site's broken, it looks terrible. And you say, clear your cache or check incognito. You know that, like, just checking incognito, it works fine on my machine. Almost, I would say 99% of the time, it's browser cache. Because what they got is they got some CSS file downloaded, they've got the logo downloaded, they got something downloaded that their browser's using that's out of date. There's ways around that. If you get into kind of dev world, there's little tricks you can do for what's called browser cache busting. That gets complicated, we're not going to go into detail here, but just remember, whenever a client says, oh, my website is broken, what do you say? You said you fixed it, it looks terrible. You look and it looks fine. It's browser cache. Okay. Last little piece we'll get into before we wrap up. Places where caching becomes a headache. So, yeah, actually, yes, what was your name?
Clint.
Clint. Clint asked early on, do I actually need to care about caching? What I would say is if you have any kind of business motivation behind your website, care about caching, because speed helps people convert. The faster your website, the more money you make. Flat out simple. Something like 6 to 7% per second of page load time. You lose 6 to 7% of your business for every second that your page takes to load. So think about that with your 8 seconds page. All right. Where caching becomes a problem for you is if you've got things like what I call dynamic content. Like say you've got a related post widget on there, and you want it to load different things on every page load, or you've got some kind of random piece, or even if you've just got a blog that updates routinely and you want to pull in kind of fresh images. Dynamic content and caching do not play along well. Because all that dynamic content, all that processing has to go through the server. WordPress has to go and calculate all that. And all these caching tools are saying, WordPress, don't calculate, I got what I used before. So it never gets a chance to generate that new stuff. WooCommerce and membership sites are also terrible because they, every person who visits an e-commerce site, a store, you go shopping at Target.com or Amazon.com, or you go and sign into Facebook or whatever, you want that page to look different than the person next to you. You want it to look like your stuff, the stuff you added to your cart, the stuff that you're about to check out with. If it's a membership site, you want to see your own posts that you put up, and you want to see that kind of dynamic stuff. It's supposed to be individualized to you. Again, caching is this thing where it says, I've already seen this, somebody else requested it, I've saved what they got. And so I don't need to do it again. But if it's something like e-commerce where every person wants to see something different, you can't show them someone else's content. So when I request the cart page on Amazon, they can't show me BMO's cart. I don't want to see that. Please, dude, your pants don't even fit me. I don't want to see your jeans you're buying on Amazon. So yeah, e-commerce sites and membership sites have their own extreme difficulties with caching. There are solutions out there for them, but just this is going to be a headache for you. Browser caching, we talked about some. And last thing is if you use page builders, Visual Composer, Beaver Builder, what's the other?
WP Bakery?
Yeah, WP Bakery, whatever they call that one. There's another name for that, I think. But anyway, like things like that, they have their own headache in that they will often render CSS through like server-side processing and such. And so they'll create their own cache files, and oftentimes they get tripped up, and it becomes a headache for you. So those are other places to watch out for, and places where you might realize you have some caching issues. I am way over my 15 minutes, but
Did everyone have fun?
Yep.
yeah.
All right.
We can now, we've got, what, till 7:38? 7:30 or 8, something like that?
8:30.
8 or 8:30? We've got an hour or more. Now to go and play with caching, we can talk about more caching things. You can just go and build your site, whatever you feel like doing. Yeah.
Way at the beginning, you mentioned cookies. Of course, when you come on, they're asking you a lot of sites, you want to enable cookies. Does that make things go faster or slower when you say yes or no?
I would say no is faster. Usually enabling cookies, you may have heard GDPR talked about in the news, or you may have had to deal with it. It was a European Union data privacy law where all the sites now have to ask, hey, can we use cookies on you? Generally, if the site is going to use cookies, they're going to also fire tracking scripts in the background. Things like Google Analytics and Share a Sale and AdWords and stuff. All those things will slow down the site. And so if you say no, then it'll actually speed up your site. Another trick, and I probably shouldn't say this, it's actually working in the marketing department, is ad blockers. Yeah, they make a big, huge difference because they will block all that nasty ads that load. And usually that's the slowest stuff on a website because they're bogged down in their big, heavy things. So running an ad blocker on your browser will block cookies, and it'll also speed up your sites that you load. Yeah. Other questions? Don't see anything to play with?
What was the name of the, you said the auto-optimize, what was the type of caching that was?
Minification.
Minification.
Yeah. I've actually got, I threw up onto just a little playset I've got, the auto-optimize plugin, just so you can see what it looks like. Is that visible with the light? You know, see the screen a little? Ish?
Yeah.
Ish. Okay, it looks, the WordPress looks particularly white, whited out.
White on white.
So
Yeah.
this is on a, this is not a plugin, but this is at a setting level, or?
This is auto-optimize plugin. When you install it, these are the settings for it.
Oh, okay.
So it gets installed over in, once you install and activate auto-optimize, it installs over in settings. All right, so these are just a sense of what kinds of things it lets you do. You can optimize your HTML code, which means that all the p tags and that, it'll strip out all the white space and all the extra stuff, all the stuff that makes it readable to us but computers don't care about. So it'll strip those out. JavaScript and CSS, it'll both do. Small note for you, CSS, I would say, is always safe to minify. I've never run into issues minifying CSS. JavaScript gets tricky. JavaScript and minifiers don't play well, especially with some of the more complicated plugins like Revolution Slider or things that have older style JavaScript in it. Minifiers will break the code or they'll screw things up. And so you may turn on JavaScript and you're like, oh, geez, it all broke.
In question, this is happening, this is between the database and HTML generation part of the process?
Auto-optimize? Auto-optimize is actually for your static files.
Okay.
So it's at the point where the browser is going to get the static files. And so it makes those static files smaller.
Is it minimizing, like pressing photos too, or does that be more the Smush side of things?
So photos is going to be like Smush Pro, you,
That's compressing my
image
pictures,
options,
and
and
this is
so
compressing just my static files.
yeah,
like
this
photos.
makes like CSS and JavaScript smaller,
Got it, yeah.
and it combines them all together.
Got it.
Yeah. But generally, auto-optimize is one of those you can just throw up on your site and turn on, and you probably shouldn't need to stress about much. It doesn't break many sites. I throw up WP Total Cache as well, so you can kind of see what its database looks like. He got unhappy with me apparently when I declined to go read the terms and conditions and said, wait, no, but now you're not legal. I don't know. It's not happy with me right now. But so this is just, when you look at WP3 Total Cache settings, this is all you get. There's really not a lot of settings here. You can go and buy premium services if you want to. But really, it just does everything for you. And it gives you the ability to do things like just make sure everything's compatible or empty all the caches. Oftentimes you'll find like you'll make changes to your theme or publish some pages or change widgets and it's broken. Emptying the cache will fix those. And almost all these plugins have it. You also see it's got memcache and opcache buttons. So if you've got those running, it'll let you clear the caches on those on the server side. But yeah, Total Cache is one of those kind of just plug and play things too. You want to play? You want to learn anything else?
Yeah, I think I got something.
Yeah.
I've been paying attention to Google PageSpeed Insights, and after doing auto-optimize and W3 supercache, I've got 3 files that the speed test is screeching about because it wants me to defer delivery of that. And I don't know if there's a way to do that line by line in WordPress. Right,
Yeah.
so going back to what you're saying, basically my plugin's mushed like 12 CSS files, like you said, into one, but the page speed is still saying, hey, this thing's too big or whatever.
Right.
So when you see an individual file is affecting speed, what do you do?
Like you've got a couple files that want you to
Yeah, I've
defer,
got
and it's probably JavaScript files.
Yeah, it's got 2 CSS and 1 JavaScript.
Okay.
And then 1 JavaScript is minified, so I
Yeah.
imagine it's more than 1 JavaScript rolled into one.
Okay, so this is a good question. When you get into things like Google PageSpeed and Kingdom and that, you got the tip?
I would say load webpagetest.org,
Okay.
run that page through that, and then look at the waterfall that it shows you, and look at all the various assets that are coming in. It'll give you a lot more information on what's loading, what's taking a long time to load, and then you can start making decisions on how to change things.
What was the website?
Webpagetest.org. You get something like this. This is the dedicated homepage. Every single thing loads. You want me to show you that one?
It's okay.
Put me on the spot here. Yeah, so this is an example test from webpagetest.org.
So taking what this gentleman's saying here, let's go ahead and let's find some offenders, right?
Yeah. All right, so first off, up here at the top, I can see, so my time to first byte is an F, compressing images, I got B's and A's, I'm doing good, and caching static content, I got an F. Okay, quick note for you, time to first byte means how long is it from when you make the request until your browser hears back from the server. So basically all that stuff from it goes to the server, WordPress is doing its stuff, and it finally kicks back. So time to first byte means how long did it take WordPress to do its stuff. If you're getting bad grades on that, that's where you can look at things like W3 Total Cache, or server-side caching solutions. When I say server-side, W3 Total Cache is one, Varnish and Memcache are things that cache functions that happen on the server. So that'll speed up your time to first byte. Also, quick tip, this isn't related to caching, but go kill your own plugins that you're not using anymore. You've got 63 plugins enabled, I know you do. I know you're also only using 7 of them because you were just trying out the others. Just go deactivate them, it's super easy. Yeah. And by the way, Q Revolution slider, nobody likes sliders anyways. Yeah, okay. So, for time, as we go through this real quick, time to first byte, the F means WordPress is taking too long. Compressing images and transfers and caching static content, this gets into things like CDNs and auto-optimize, and what do you do with those other static files and how do you make those faster? All right, let's see.
Did you go back up?
Yeah.
That chart, that table there, first view, run, load time,
That's good.
that is more valuable to you than what you're seeing up in those squares. Load time, document complete time, fully loaded time, those are the numbers you want to try to target. The request are how many pieces of content did it have to get? Every image, HTML file, JavaScript file, CSS file, every single thing that it has to get builds that request number. And generally, the more requests you make, the slower your site is, unless you're just on the most expensive streaming web server setup out there. So
in this particular case, there's HTML files, 61 different images, JavaScript, and
yeah.
CSS files.
Yeah, so if you can not only reduce the size of the images and compress the scripts and the CSS, but also eliminate the ones you need, then you combine CSS into one file. So things like auto-optimize, if they can take it and mash them all into a single file, one request is better than 20 requests. Okay.
Something else to add here. Okay, so when you're first starting out, yeah, this is great. This bar is a great thing. Start render is good because that's when the browser starts to paint, like we're talking about painting. That's when it finally says, okay, I got all this stuff, now I can start to put stuff on the page for the viewer to see. Load time means the browser says, okay, I'm done, the page is done. So when you're first starting out with caching, these are two numbers to look at. Start render, first byte, start render, and load time.
Which is more important, perceived speed or actual speed?
When you get more advanced, then you don't care when is the page done. Then you care about when does the user think the page is done? Which is what in this case they're calling first interactive time. So first interactive means when is the site at the place where the user can start scrolling or clicking and it looks like the page to them. So I say when you get more advanced because this number and load time will actually become very disparate as you get into things like what's called lazy loading.
Yeah.
Or when you start deferring JavaScript like you were talking about. Lazy loading is saying, hey, those images that you wanted, those 30 images, those are actually way down on the page. When the page first loads, we don't need to get those yet. They're not, the visitor's not going to see those. So I'm going to wait and get them after the page is rendered, after they've already seen the top of the page, what the newspaper terms is above the fold, and then I'm going to go and fetch those images because I can take my time with those. Nobody cares. And then JavaScript defer is a lot of the JavaScript files that you load, that Revolution slider and all those things, we actually don't need those to make the page render, to make the page look like it should. We don't need them yet. They're for all the fancy functionality. They're for the drop-down menus and the buttons that you click and all that stuff. So deferring and async is the two terms we'll hear there. Meaning, okay, so I want these files, but go fetch them, but keep paying the page, keep making that page go, and give me those files when you got them. I don't care when you finish, just go get them, and I'll eventually use them whenever they come in, but I want that page first. Okay, so it's advanced, this piece is advanced because as you start doing more of this kind of lazy loading async, you'll see first interactive and load time get way more diverse. wpage.com actually, our first interactive, we've got it down to I think 0.9 when we're happy with caching, we're doing good with caching. Our load time is 8 seconds.
That's why you look at that.
When we're doing good, our load time is 8 seconds. It's because there's all kinds of stuff going on in the background. And some of it is tracking scripts that are running, some of it is our chat functionality we got. All this stuff, we don't care about that initial ringer. So, yeah.
Like for a common, I mean, a common thing, like I've just got done testing some sharing plugins. And Share This was making, I want to say, 12 requests. So in that request column, there was an additional 12 requests just for the Share This plugin to render a little badge, give me my 6 things that people can click on and do something with. I replaced that with another sharing plugin that makes, I think, 2. But I still have the same interaction that I can get, and it goes and does the sharing through the different services. So it doesn't have as many services as Share This, but I'm okay with that. Because I shave like a half-second load time off my pages because it doesn't have to sit there and make all those requests.
So you're getting 3% more sales. Your sales just went up 3%.
If I'm selling, yeah.
Hey, we're all selling something.
That's true.
Whatever it is, you're selling something.
So what about like one-time use plugins, like use Duplicator or something like that? It's not actually running right now, doing anything, but like, do you deactivate it?
Yeah.
Like,
go ahead and kill it.
Yeah, the Query Monitor is one. I've never run that on the live site, but I've needed to turn it on to see why the database is so slow, what's going on. I'll turn it on and I just turn it off, but I don't install it.
Okay. So an activated plugin that we're not using is worse than a deactivated one?
Yes.
Oh, every
Okay.
time.
Yeah. So the difference there, an activated plugin, WordPress will go and load all of its code and process all of its code and figure out everything it wants to do. And then it won't really run the code, but it figures out what's there.
Yeah.
And so it says,
So it
okay,
has to be
so
like
I know
a full
all this
table
stuff.
scan essentially.
Yeah.
Like it has to know what's there.
Yeah, to know whether or not it should run anything. It may not run much, so it may not have a huge effect, but it's incremental. And yeah, if you're, just kill it, there's no need for it. Yeah.
If you're gonna deactivate it, I'm new, as you know, why
Sure.
don't you just remove it?
Just remove it. Most plugins that's safe. It's generally better to go through the deactivate thing. The reason is plugins, especially ones that change how WordPress works, will make options, will save options in the background, will make little tweaks here and there. And well-written plugins, whenever you deactivate it, say, hey, I'm no longer going to be used anymore, go and remove all my stuff. Go and strip out all those options I made, just
But
finish it.
some don't.
Yeah, a lot of them don't. The deactivate piece is not super well adopted. Well-written ones do. The popular ones, the big ones that people talk about, do have that.
Well, when you deactivate it, it saves its state. When you delete it, then it'll go through and remove everything that it had injected, all of the settings, all the options, so on and so forth.
It depends.
That's why deactivating is safer, especially even premium plugins where you may not know where to go get it again because it's not in the WordPress repo. So it might be safer to just leave it on your site deactivated and you'll have to figure out how to download it again. But if they're straight from the repo, then it should be safe to delete it and reinstall it unless it's going to wipe out all of your settings.
And when we say delete it, we mean in WordPress, click the thing that says delete.
Yeah.
Don't go into the file browser and go to plugins and then delete it there. Because then it's just gone and WordPress doesn't know to go and pick out all those settings that it made. So use WordPress to deactivate it, just to keep your site cleaner.
Are there certain types of plugins like security word fence and stuff like that that are doing all this other stuff in the background that are bigger culprits for performance, things like that? I know we're talking more about performance now, but
Yeah.
yeah, like I look at like things like word fence security and stuff like that. It's got all those cool features and it's doing all the scanning with my head. It makes me wonder if it slows things down.
Well, you can check too.
Yeah.
You want to show them the waterfall real quick? Because we didn't get into that, and I think that's one of the cooler things to see.
Yeah. And then I also wanted to show, debug bar. That's what's going on. So this is a couple different things. But you're talking about a lot of stuff on the back end, so that's going to happen on the server. So that'll show up in that kind of first byte, and actually the waterfall won't show you there. But things like Revolution Slider, I hate on this plugin because I despise it. It is absolutely horrific. So this is the waterfall graph. This shows from the browser's end, from the client's end, from you sitting at your laptop's end, what happened. And so you see the request was made to DC sites. It took a little bit for it to even get going, where to find out where to go. It made the request. All of that is WordPress and server stuff. So in the waterfall, that's invisible. The client doesn't know what was happening there. We just know it took a little while. And then you see all the different files that are requested. And on crayon.net, style, 961 layout, styles, jQuery pop-up thing, Bootstrap, style again, a couple Google fonts, Max CDN piece, Animate, Jetpack, jQuery Migrate, Crayon again. We got 2 crayons. Oh, CSS and JavaScript. Yeah, so all these different files are requested. Those are 62 things. And you can see on the other side how long they all took. So see, crayon.min.css took 49 milliseconds. Who cares? That's not a big deal. 961 layout CSS, actually, it took a little while for it to even get going, and it took me a good quarter of a second to download. Now, it's downloading other things in succession with it, but that's still a decent hunk of time. I might look and see, my guess is this is coming from Beaver Builder, this particular piece, and so we might want to look and see what can we do here to save that. If we look down, oh wow, here's a bad one here. Which one is this? Oh, a font. Yeah, a TTF font even.
How do you download the plugin?
It's actually my wife's site. I gotta go chew her out from using this. A Beaver Builder too. Ah. Okay, so this is a font. It took a good half second to load. By the way, you see that purple line? That's that place where it says, okay, it's painted, and then the big blue line is it says it's done. So all this stuff, the browsers have to wait on. And this particular font here is taking it forever to go and get. Do we have a size here? It's 91K. It's actually a pretty decent size. Plus, it's in a TTF format. If you run your site through PageSpeed or web page, I'll tell you, hey, use the new formats, WAF and WAF2. Big confusing thing, basically, try to use things like Google Fonts or see if you can get the web font style. TTF is for your computer. It's not for the website. But yeah, these are all the different files that I downloaded. And so I can start to see, actually Beaver Builder seems to be a big culprit here. Here's yet another font. I downloaded font, awesome. Yeah.
Turn off all the fonts.
Where do you see the font?
Sorry, I popped up real fast.
Everything.
Web font.loft2 queued me in. And then it came from Max CDN font awesome. So this is the little pretty icon things. Yeah. Beaver Builder actually with default settings is really bad for your site speed without some caching.
If I can stay with WordFence just a second.
Yeah.
The gentleman brought up, as you know, I have a new site. It's only been up since January. And I'm astounded how many hundreds of people trying to get into my site that WordFence is blocking from all over the world.
Yeah.
Is that common?
Yes. Yeah, it's bots. There are bots out there that just comb through and find URLs and hit them.
We're talking about repeated, constant stuff.
You're probably getting hundreds a minute. Yeah, there's stuff that even WordPress isn't catching, and you're probably getting 100 login attempts a minute.
Yeah, from all kinds of countries.
Yep. Probably overwhelmingly India, China,
Russia.
Philippines,
Russia.
Yeah.
So for a long time, there's the thought that it's just a small, tiny cat log. No one's going to care about it. They don't have to protect it. But what people started realizing is people aren't going after your site. They're going after your server resources. So the more small, discrete, tiny little sites no one's really going to care about that they can get into, then they can start chaining together your resources to do whatever they wanted to do. So if they can hack in and then use your small little space of server time to send out all of their email blasts or whatever they're trying to do, that's what they're going after more often than not.
Also, aren't they trying to hold you for extortion?
Maybe. Probably not. Honestly, what they're trying to do is be able to get in there so they can create a page or a comment in the back end that you won't notice. And then they'll use that for spam. They use that for spam emails for Nigerian Prince offers. Yeah, that's overwhelmingly what hacking attempts are these days. People don't hack in to deface your website. People don't hack in to hold you hostage for money that much. They can make a lot more money by just selling the ability, by selling, hey, I got this little server where you can post a nasty link.
What about shared passwords, where they find out one and they go and test all your other links?
Oh, we're going down a security rabbit hole here. All right, we're going to dial back the security piece. That's maybe next month. All right, You had a great question about WordFence and these plugins and how much do they do on the server side. So we looked at the waterfall, which has all the different client-side stuff of all the files it has to download, and we saw, hey, Beaver Builder's a culprit. We got to do something here. Especially look at these fonts.
I'm not familiar with Beaver Builder, but is that
it's a page builder.
Front-end page editor.
Yeah.
like a drag and drop WYSIWYG kind of
Yes.
thing? Okay.
Yeah. It gives it kind of a Wix type feel to it. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Server side. Remember, the waterfall doesn't tell you what happened. There's that big blue bar that we just said it's WordPress. And so server side, there's actually some tricks you can do. This is by far the best tool out there. It's called Debug Bar. A quick note, like Pat said, don't turn this on in production. This slows your site down significantly. Okay, but this is great for debugging, quite literally debug. If you have a staging site, do it on your staging site. Otherwise, do it in production and then turn it back off. Okay, so debug bar, you turn on, it immediately tells you how many queries happened. In this particular case, it took 12. It spent 14 milliseconds in query time. Queries is database calls. It's the stuff that we talked about where WordPress has gone to the database to get the content. So it's telling you how many queries it's got. Also, there's a ton of add-ons to debug bar. There's one that we can show you what plugins are taking too long. I'm blanking on the name right now, I totally forgot. There's one that looks into hooks and actions, and one that'll show you plugins. And you can actually see, is this hard?
Yeah, Query Monitor actually has most of that in there now too.
Yeah, Query Monitor?
Yeah.
Isn't that I guess there's an add-on for debug bar for Query
That
Monitor.
hooks into it.
Yeah. Note about plugins and whether or not they're slowing down your site. Okay, so you know plugins with a ton of features. Yoast, dear God, how many panels of settings do I need to put in meta tags so it shows up on Facebook? Okay, but WordFence is another one that has a ton of settings, and there's a lot of plugins out there that gives you all these features. They may or may not be slowing down your site. Just because it has a lot of settings, it's a red flag to say, hey, maybe this is too complicated, but it doesn't necessarily mean it is. WordFence, I actually bet you WordFence is not slowing down your site much. I know the guys who wrote it, and I know their focus, and they're doing all their stuff on the admin area. So it's going to slow down that backend where you're in the gray dashboard area. It's going to slow that down. But honestly, it's worth it to me to have my site building a little bit slower to be secure. But the user's experience, the front end, I doubt it's affecting much. Other things like Yoast actually does slow down your site. And we found a WP engine, ACF, Advanced Custom Fields. If you're doing any freelance work, or if you've had a freelancer work on your site, you probably have ACF installed, you probably used it. ACF, Advanced Custom Fields goes by ACF. It's a big, huge, popular tool for building custom features into WordPress sites. We actually found, we did some tests, and we found it was adding over half a second to our page load time. Now ACF, to be clear, all it does is add an extra feature for people when they're building the page. It's only for editors, it's only for people who are logged in. But it's doing a bunch of stuff, it's loading a bunch of stuff on the front end that it doesn't need to. And so it's actually slowing down our front end significantly for people that weren't logged in that didn't care about it. So that was one where we did some debugging looking at, hey, what plugins are slow? So we said, oh, hey, that one, okay, build that. Yeah.
I have to do an ADA plugin.
Yeah.
And not only that, I've got to start alternate text pictures. How much is all this going to slow the thing down?
Doing accessibility on your website? Like trying to make it more accessible?
Well, as we talked about a little bit last week, but I already got notified I need to do an ADA.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got to get working on a plug-in and start putting all the text pictures in. You know, I have a lot of pictures.
Sure.
And put the text, you know, built into it. So how much is this? What are you going to advise me on that?
All text is not slow down your website.
Okay.
You're going to add 100 characters to your HTML file. Your HTML file already has 80,000. It's microseconds to add to your website.
Okay, how about an ADA plugin?
It sounds like this plugin is going to make a lot of the recommendation for you to
Right.
alter and change your content. So it's not impacting it just being there. It sounds more like something that's assisting you on the back end. So you're still going to build your content to its standards, but that doesn't mean it's going to load or inject anything on your actual front end with that content.
Yeah, I'm not sure which ADA plugin, they'd all be different, but yeah, it could, and if it is one that just gives you suggestions, turn it on while you're making the suggestions, and then once you're done, turn it back off, like debug bar. No need to leave it running. Yeah.
I have a specific question about
Sure.
ACF. Well, Bill Erickson has some code that you can run that will prevent ACF from running on the front end?
That should help. That should do it. Yeah.
And the new release includes support for persistent object caching. So they're doing a lot of advancements for that exact thing of the database overhead.
Okay. Yeah, we went over to CMB2, which is kind of a competitor, I guess, in the open source market. Sure. Like an alternative to ACF.
ACF's got the market share for it, and I think their development path is still long. They got a lot of runway on building a lot of improvements into it. I would be surprised. I would not be surprised to see it dramatically improve. Yeah, soon, very soon.
Pods, though, Pods is another competitor.
Yeah, that's
it's looking pretty. It will crush your site.
Yeah.
It is horrific for site performance. It's got some really pretty options. You can do some really cool, fun things, but it will slow it down overall.
Yeah, and these plugins like this debug bar, you know, that's not an interact. I mean, that's just an image. But you know, when you're loading one of these up, you hit the queries tab and just look at everything making all those calls. And that's an easy way to find. Wait, I have that plugin still turned on. Why? And you go turn it off.
Let's actually install it. We got time.
Jetpack is a big one too, sadly.
Yeah.
The queries that thing makes is massive.
There's so many features on that. I don't even know what they're trying to do anymore.
It's an injection tool for them to put code on your website, if I'm not going to be blunt.
I mean, you're not wrong.
Hey, here's a new feature. We'll just auto-insert it into your site if you have Jetpack installed. And I've had great things. I run it on one of my little sites, but man, it's like 23 queries just for Jetpack.
Have you heard of
8 for WordPress SEO?
Have you heard of async JavaScript?
Yes.
That's what I just used to defer those ones that were problematic.
That's what it
just
does.
Took care of it. So
the easiest way to see that is if you ever load up Facebook and you see the little gray as the images and everything else start to load in the middle, that's all asynchronous loading. That's all deferring. They've practically wrote the book on a lot of
I've
that.
scrolled to where that content hasn't been created yet.
Your browsers are intelligent enough to know your window dimensions, and they know if there's content that's not yet on there. So they basically say everything below this barrier, whether it's that size or whether it's this size or whether it's this size, don't load it yet until it starts to get within a certain range of the screen, and then it makes a call to load.
Async is a huge performance win. WordPress does not do it out of the box. It does not have an easy way to do it. Why, you got me?
Well, it's not within the CMS.
It should be a flag. Come on.
It's not within the CMS.
Okay, so Auto-Optimize, we talked about. Auto-Optimize has a sister plugin called Async JavaScript that will do that for you. It will take all your JavaScript files and async them. And it's got options where you can say, okay, actually this particular one, I need this on page load. I actually do need this file to load. And I can't just wait for it forever. So it's a good option there. Again, you're minifying and messing with JavaScript. You very well could break your site. So be ready to go back into the back end and turn it back off.
Very fast.
What about, I've seen tools out there that are like about purging cache and things like that. So can you kind of talk around that? Like, why would I want something that's out there doing something around purging cache and things like that?
Sure. So purging cache gets into that issue of I've made some changes to my website and oh crap, it's not showing right. We talked that 99% of the time that's the browser cache. The other 1%, there's some kind of server-side cache going on. That's not it. Part of what you're getting is the new stuff. The other part is the old stuff, and they're conflicting. So purging cache means let's just delete the whole freaking cache that we got. All that stuff you saved, trash it, and let's start over fresh and regenerate everything. Yeah. Honestly, most servers, or most plugins, every plugin comes with its own purge cache tool. You could get things for like Varnish, Memcache, and that would purge it. Like WD Total Cache had a little button to clear OP cache. And so there's.
I found one called Proxy Cache Purge, and I realized I'm guilty of having like too many plugins and forgetting to deactivate a lot of them. I was like, oh, I'm not using this, but. So that one, it had a setting up there, like where you have like the auto optimize. It had a setting up. It was just saying active cache? Do you want to purge all cache, or do you want to do it every 24 hours? It was like a kind of a quick, high-level setting. And
Sure.
so
Yeah, auto
that
optimize
thing
has that for
so I guess.
delete cache.
All right,
Yeah,
so
that kind of thing.
So that thing's going out there, and it's just. So I think this one was saying like it automatically empties your cache pages when your content of your site has been modified.
I'm curious what cache is empty. I would say any purge cache feature, only use it if you know you've got a cache you need to empty. Otherwise, you may just be adding features you don't need. If you don't have any kind of proxy set up, you don't need proxy caching.
I mean, if you're not doing a ton of updates to your site either, too, that's the other thing is.
If it's staying the same week after week,
Yeah.
like most vast majority of websites.
It's just when you go into those development sprints or something, and you're like, all right, I had to do a whole bunch of stuff over the weekend. So let's say that happens, and is it a best practice to, when you, let's say you've gone out and you've changed a whole bunch of stuff, like, should you just go out and like clear cache and do that through your auto optimize and your total cache?
And honestly, most of these plugins are smart enough to realize either, hey, you just published something, or auto-optimize is smart enough to know, oh, you're actually asking for different things than what I've cached. I just looked at what's
Does it
coming is
diff
different.
something?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they'll do that for you.
Because it's just another plugin that I could be like, well, I have this one that's purging cache when I update my site, then it makes me think like, if I make an update to my site, I can just add that to kind of my little checklist of things I need to do.
I would say with any plugin, if you don't need it,
Yeah.
get rid of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Just if it's like, oh, this is kind of fun. All right. We were talking about slow actions and trying to figure out server-side stuff real fast. So I installed that debug bar, and I installed another one of the other plugins out there called Slow Actions. So this doesn't tell me necessarily plugins, but it tells me where things are taking a long time. So these are different actions that happen inside WordPress. You can see right here, auto-optimize setup done happened. Let's see, it had 5 different things that happened. It took a total of 13 milliseconds. So that's not a big deal to me. Init took a long time, but init is actually one of the big ones in WordPress. It always will. If I look down here, I see a giant number shout out. This actually looks pretty good. It's just such a bare bones site. Yeah, so I'm actually doing pretty good here. There's a bunch of different options I fired, but nothing's really screaming out at me. It also shows me object cache. I've got object cache running, so it tells me, hey, actually your object cache, your database cache worked vast majority of the time. 11,000 or 1,100 calls were cached, it worked, and it only had to make a cache miss. It had to go and talk to the database 100 times. And showing just natural debug bar. I don't want, where's just the basic setup? I've just got that to get just the basic information. There, I didn't add it in the extra piece. Anyway, so that's a sense of what debug bar does. So, yeah.
I understand clearing cache on Google and Firefox. Is there certain things clearing your website, WordPress cache?
That's the optimized cache.
Yeah.
Or it's your web server cache.
Yeah, that gets into like all those different caching tools we were talking about. Each one of those will have its own clear cache piece. So your browser has just one big giant one. You go into Chrome, you clear the entire browser out. Your WordPress gets a little more complicated, that all the different pieces will have their own.
So what's the one you recommend to do that?
They'll all have their own piece. So auto-optimize is its own clear cache.
Say it again.
Auto-optimize is the minification piece, the one that makes your files smaller.
Auto, AUTO?
AU, like auto-optimize, but only one O.
One O, yeah.
Yeah. They were lazy on the keyboard.
So I had the fastest cache, or WP fastest cache installed, and it had like 800,000 installs, and W total, I guess, had 1 million. But I'm noticing the amount of freaking features that WP total has, and I mean, it's pretty immense.
Yeah.
So I guess there's some. Is there any key? Like, I'll obviously go and just kind of go through a bunch of YouTubes and read as much as I can about it. But is there anything on these settings, like when you install WP Total, anything you would say, hey, but make sure you have this set up or not set up?
No, W3 Total is like Yoast to me, where you turn it on and you're pretty much good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yoast, I'm not an SEO guy. Our SEO people at work, they go in there and love tweak things, but whenever I'm talking like, yeah, the default stuff, it basically works. And W3 Total is kind of like that. You can make changes, but honestly, it probably won't make a huge difference. Out of the box, it's pretty good.
Like, it's interesting, it says like the maximum lifetime, so we're talking, this is saying like the maximum lifetime of a cached object is 180 seconds, that's the default. So we're talking really the benefit of caching in this situation is when you have people coming after the same thing multiple times in 3 minutes.
Yeah, so if their default is 3 minutes, it's only within 3 minutes. So if you're getting 50 views a day, caching won't benefit you much, at least at that setting. Now you can turn on super long cache times if you're not updating your website either. You can turn on a cache time of a day or a week, and that'll help.
Yeah, if you think about the jQuery library, right? No matter how much you change your site, you're probably not going to go update that core library. So it wouldn't be terrible to cache that for the next 3 years. But your, most recent images, that's going to change frequently. So maybe cache that a little less. So if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, then pinpointing what typically doesn't change and how long you can cache that versus what you expect to change once a week, once a day, so on and so forth.
Such as maybe using auto-optimize.
Yep.
Still good. Is resolution slider in the repo?
Is that all of your SQL queries in the database?
Yeah. I was going to try to do it like a before and after.
You're going to be here all
I'll
day.
do Jetpack. All right, so there's a bunch of Jetpack haters out there. One thing I'll say, if you're using Jetpack for one feature, it's not worth it. If you're using it for 8 or 10, using Jetpack versus using 10 other plugins, you're going to win with Jetpack, speed-wise. But only if you're actually using a whole lot of features. All right, so let's see. So this is my site before where I had very few different plugins running. I got auto-optimized, not much else. I had 65 queries on this super basic vanilla website. Like no content, and it had to go to the database 65 different times. And this will show me all the different ones if I want to try to comb through there. It'll also show me like what the request was, which is basically what did the browser say it wanted. In this case, it just wanted the home page. There's not much there. And wQuery tells me, oh, if your WordPress figured out I want the front page, and the front page is supposed to show all the posts.
I have a slightly annoying advanced question.
Of course you do.
That database query, every time, is that related to the post meta call for the database, or is it post content? Because I know something that I worked on recently, the post meta database call is not a true relational database. It stores every instance as the same title, and you just have duplicate keys, and then you have a bunch of different data, so it's making unnecessary calls. Is that related?
This is a place where WordPress actually does pretty well. Let's do the Jetpack comparison, and we'll get into that, because that's actually what we're talking about. Okay, so this is a site, queries without Jetpack. I just added in Jetpack. What do I get? Oh, only 72. You're telling me Jetpack is terrible. It only added like 8 queries to the thing.
Well,
I didn't turn any features.
Jetpack
You didn't turn features.
I also haven't signed in.
Exactly, get ready to be bomb. You have an inert piece of code. And add 8 queries.
Gotta craft some slack.
I'm not a hater on it, but it's heavy. It's a heavy plugin.
Okay, so this is a good example. We turned to Jetpack. If I signed in and started doing things, it'd be a lot worse. I just turned it on. It's active but not used, and so it's having a small effect. So we're talking about deactivating plugins that you're not using, and this is kind of why. It went from 65 to 72. So, other question was, like, where are all these queries coming from, basically? This is where I get after devs who don't do things WordPressy, the WordPressy way. It's a really weird phrase, but WordPress has kind of a way of loading content. If you're on the front page with the posts that are there, it will load all that content from the database. And if you go to a single page, it will load all the content that's supposed to be there. A lot of the weird plugins out there are the super, like, hey, we're going to totally redo how WordPress works, or we're going to throw in this super cool extra post log thing, or devs who aren't performance-minded, who especially don't come from a WordPress background, they don't do things in a WordPressy way, which means they're going to go and make a whole bunch of other database calls. So in the case, let's get more specific, in the case of load a single page. So on the WordPress backend, the database, a single post or a single page has one record in the post table, and it has probably 30 records in the post meta table. So theoretically, it could be one call and then 30 more. WordPress is really smart, and it's got some funky ass queries that will do all that in a single database call. So they've optimized that down. So if I'm going to go view the front page, I'm expecting it to be one thing, and it's load things the way WordPress would do it, then it'll just do a single query to get all that information. And the rest, if you look, are going to be things like selecting options, getting options out. And so that's actually going to come from my plugins.
Is that part of the legacy code from WordPress, the way that they handle the database? Because it's not truly a relational database, but
The fact that it's all broken out like that?
Yeah.
Probably because at some point in time they needed to support MySQL 2.3 or something that didn't support relational databases. Hold up.
I can answer that one really easy.
All right, what?
I was told exactly how many options do you have per post?
In general?
No, exactly. Per post, how many options are in posts per post meta?
7.
All right. You have one plugin. How many are there now? Yeah, you don't know. So in order to have a true relational, every meta key would be its own column in the data, but it's impossible to know how much you want to relate to that one post. So it's easier to flip your table this way and grow it row by row than have to alter the database structure column by column.
That's essentially what I was trying to do, but I was trying to write a SQL query that would take all that and then put it in columns.
A lot of unions.
Yeah, it just terrible.
Yeah. Database, yeah. Okay. Going back to the WordPress related, I want to make one quick point. Weird plugins, Revolution Slider, I hate on this freaking thing. It will load, Revolution Slider, all those different things that, like all the different slides are links to posts. So WordPress has already done one super easy query to get all the information from the post that's supposed to be on that page. Revolution Slider is coming in after the fact and saying, I want to show all this information about all these other posts too. And so it goes and it makes a call for the title, and then it'll make a call for all the individual post meta pieces. It's not doing something efficient, it's making a whole bunch more database calls. So instead of going from 65 to 72 like Jetpack, Jetpack's well written, Revolution Slider is not. It'll probably take it up to 130. Because it's not well written, it's not written in a WordPressy way.
Oh, this might be a dumb question.
Yeah.
When you say it's going to get the title, like if I have like a custom loop and I'm like, you know, like using the get the title function, is that an example of?
Yeah.
So if you had a custom loop, how would you prevent a bunch of extra?
Sure. Well, the fact that you're using the loop, you're already doing it WordPress way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
You're
Gotcha.
using a custom loop, you're doing it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Just got it.
So when you did, that custom loop is a WP query?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay.
WP query is nice and efficient,
Okay.
and it's doing good.
I think the problem would come into play if you start writing your own queries and like trying to get that data yourself.
Yeah, not going through the loop, not going through WP query, not going through WPDB, but just making like a straight MySQL
Okay.
call, completely outside of.
Isn't that what Laravel does? Like you have to do it all.
Laravel?
Yeah.
Yes.
Whole different stuff.
Yeah.
So by bringing all these plugins, what's the chances of them, any of them having a virus or bug?
Virus, very small. Assuming you're getting out of the WordPress.org repo, or you're buying decent premium ones that are,
Well, let's just say I'm into WordPress right now.
yeah.
Is there any issues with bringing any of those plugins?
If you're getting anything out of the WordPress plugin repository, they are all vetted to a fairly high degree.
When we say that, what we mean is we're going into, get back into, of course I put it for multi-site.
Plugin.
Yeah. Install. So when we say you're getting out of the repo, I mean inside WordPress you're going here to add new plugin and you're searching here. This is what we call the WordPress.org plugin repo. So if you go to WordPress.org/plugins, this is where they all show up. It's the same set between them. These are vetted by the community, and they're also pretty heavily monitored. So that as antivirus are very small. I can think of one incident in the past couple of years where somebody snuck a virus in.
So they're not really vetted by WordPress, they're vetted by the community? Or both? Or both?
Same
Both.
thing.
Yeah.
WordPress is community.
Yeah.
There is no WordPress company. WordPress is just community.
So Dimitri, take a second and explain it to me.
Which part?
Oh God, WordPress versus automatic versus community versus. Okay, so WordPress is a piece of software. Okay. It is at the end of the day, WordPress is a piece of software that renders a website. Okay. It's made by what we call the WordPress community. It's coded. All the coding that goes into it is made by the community. The community is.
Is the community paid?
No, all volunteers. It's people like us who use WordPress, like it, and have decided, hey, I want to make this a little bit better. And so people like us are out there writing new features for it, fixing problems, vetting plugins. And so there's hundreds of thousands of people across the globe that do this.
Okay, because I saw somewhere there's a president and the CEO or something like that.
Of Automatic, which is a different company. Well, it is a company.
The Jetpack plugin that Pat was hating on over there, because yeah, he's just he's got the little Grinch heart, yeah. So Jetpack is made by a company called Automatic, with 2 T's, because WordPress people can't spell. At least they don't make a word like Google. So Automatic is sort of the sponsor company of WordPress. Okay. WordPress.com is where probably a lot of people get started with WordPress sites. Who has a WordPress.com plug? I don't know how many. Really?
Oh, I'm sure I've got
Nobody.
one up there.
I know
I've gone there
yeah.
for 12 years.
Oh yeah. You'll never start. Wow, times have changed. Okay. Back when I got into WordPress, you just did WordPress.com. They're like, oh, I can do this myself.
What Facebook?
What?
Facebook too? WordPress.com.
Oh,
Like
no.
the blogger.
Blogging's dead.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that was back in the blogging days. So WordPress.com actually gives away free WordPress sites. You can get a WordPress site running for free. WordPress.com
That's what I think I have.
Okay. So WordPress.com is run by Automatic. It is Automatic's main business piece. Automatic, again, is a company. It's a private company run by a guy named Matt Mullenweg. Automatic runs WordPress.com, Jetpack, and WooCommerce are 3 things. WordPress.org, which is where the community happens and where we're more affiliated, is kind of a sister group to it. So WordPress.org has its own corporate nonprofit entity status. WordPress.com is a private company status. WordPress.com pours a ton of money into .org, and something like 1/3 of its employees work for free for the company.
And where do they get that money?
WordPress.com?
Hosting
From
fees.
hosting, from sites. So you can get a free blog on WordPress.com where you pay more money for more features.
Right.
WooCommerce you pay money for, and Jetpack has things you pay for.
Right.
So Jetpack, you install it, you get a lot of stuff free, you pay $20 a month, you get a lot more. So they make money off of that.
And that's essentially the whole plugin business model, which is you offer a free plugin, but then you offer alternative features for the money so that you actually get paid for the work that you do.
Premium.
Yeah. WordPress did a great job of being able to cultivate a community around that.
That's a whole other conversation. And you are a reputable guy
Always
tonight. Making money with WordPress.
So in the loading,
Yeah.
Google searching,
Yeah.
okay? And you put a query in, and if you have a WordPress site, is that loading faster, slower, the same as the rest of the world?
Too complicated a question to answer well. There's way too many it depends. I would say, in general, WordPress is slower than most really simple website like a static HTML, like the network solutions where you just create an HTML site. How it compares to some of the more modern frameworks and Node and that, it's too much of a depends.
But you're talking nanoseconds anyway, right?
You're talking milliseconds of difference, yes.
Yeah.
In general.
It's all over the map.
You can make a WordPress hosted, or you can make a website that runs on WordPress, not WordPress.com, but just the software that I'm going to go get it for myself, put it on my server, and I'm going to tweak it. You can make that load in 0.4 seconds and just scream. It just depends on what you're loading in that page. It doesn't matter that it's built in WordPress. I could build a slower site that's literally straight HTML because it's how I write it. So it really does just depend.
I'm going to pull back, since we're getting back into speed a little bit, talk about Google page speed. So we looked at webpagetest.org. There's a whole bunch of tools out there that'll tell you how fast your site is.
This one's the meanest one I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This one is very, very mean.
Yes. So webpagetest.org, webpage.com actually does pretty well on it. We just saw this week. I don't know what they changed their algorithm, but oh shit. Our team is like, oh crap, we got to find out, actually figure out how to get the score higher. Okay, our site didn't actually go slower. We didn't slow down our site, they changed how they tested it. And I actually like the results from webpagetest.org better because it's more informative. And a lot of the stuff that Google gets into is stuff that's not relevant to WordPress sites. It gets into a lot of what's called progressive web app stuff, which is, it ain't WordPress. It's becoming WordPress, but it ain't right now. Okay. We care about this, and we're going, oh shit, we gotta find an action. I'm using a cursor here because this is what we're like. Because Google cares about search speed or about speed in search results. So now that we're at freaking 30, we're worried that we're gonna go down in search results. And so we're gonna go try to get this higher. And we're looking at, we're gonna go do things to make that score higher that honestly, I don't think are gonna make the experience much faster. It's just gonna make the score higher. It's just gonna make that look better. And so Google likes it.
Which moves you up in the ranking?
Which moves up in the ranking.
Yes.
And so then our SEO
By
goes
the
down.
speed of our site, they want our site to be faster.
Yes, I was gonna say. Yeah. Google has become dogmatic about fast sites, especially mobile.
That's exactly it. It's why. It's because the area of the web, the devices that are browsing the web, the slice of that market that's growing the fastest is mobile, and it's because it's the first word in the World Wide Web is the world.
It's not a conflict of interest though. Then if they're like, really, you're getting more ad clicks on mobile, so you need to speed up your mobile site.
Of course, because the faster, the more ads, of course. But
It's also
it doesn't
70%
change
of
the
all
fact.
web traffic now.
Yeah, it
Thank
doesn't
you very
change the
much.
fact
Yeah.
that data is out there.
Absolutely.
Why did they go to 6?
I went to the desktop view. So when I first put up to 30, that's mobile.
Yeah, that's where they pick you first, and they make you stream.
Desktop is
And
86.
then you go to desktop.
Last time I looked at it, it was the other way around. They showed you desktop first. Like, hey, we're doing good. Oh yeah, mobile has a few issues. We weren't doing great.
No, it's all mobile focused now.
It
They
is.
default to mobile for all of that.
And that's what they care about. So now we gotta go figure out off-screen images and
It's because
different formats.
the entire continent of Africa, phone is your dominant browsing device. Asia, phone is your dominant browsing device. The U.S. and Western Europe are where desktop computing is still kind of mid, but that's not the world. Yeah, that's not the world.
Also, you're gonna get flagged for this thing, save images in next-gen formats. This is where I get pissed at. Because when they say next-gen formats, they mean the WebP format, which is Google's image format. Okay, granted, it's a hell of a lot smaller and it's a lot faster, but it's basically a Chrome feature. And so they're gonna ping you hard on the Google tool for not using an image that's designed for Chrome
So they can make you transition.
to start using their format. Now, they're not making money off their format, but it's self-serving.
I have 2 questions related back to site speed.
Yeah.
One, y'all mentioned WP Smush earlier. I've used the tiny JPEG compression tool.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, general opinions, anyone have opinions about that plugin?
As a plugin, I don't think I've used it.
WP?
It just automatically
Yeah.
compresses your images. Because I've got clients who won't edit their images before at all. They'll load up.
They download off Shutterstock.
Yeah.
Five gigabyte images.
That's where Imagify might be good to look at. You can get an API. It's like Smush. You get you load the plugin, you get the free API key, and it serves up to X amount for free.
Okay.
Get a paid plan, and it'll sit there and it'll go back through your media
That's what
library. and
the
start-
tiny JPEG one does as well.
Dirty little secret, all of these are using the exact same code on the back end.
They are.
Just smaller.
They are.
There are, tiny JPEG is actually what the library, the code library that's called for JPEGs. Ping one I'm blanking on, but Ping, Bitmap, JPEG all have, there's only one library that compresses the images. All these services use that. The differences are how they do it, the settings, and then one of the reasons I like Smushes, they're actually really good at trying not to degrade the image quality. So your image doesn't look great.
If you're doing contracting, I highly recommend doing Meetup. Just paying for like the contract license for it. I think it's like $50
A month. It's actually kind of pricey. It's $50 a month.
If you have enough uses for it, I think it's super worth it because you get the Smush Pro bulk. You go through everything, and then you have all these other services that you can use.
Well, my other question, and more complicated, I think, and the reason I'm here, is that when I'm building a theme, I am uncertain of how to organize JavaScript files in such a way that, because every time I see other people's child themes, so I use the Genesis framework, they'll have like JavaScript for each page, for like different pages, all in the JavaScript file, or it's like a global JavaScript file, but then JavaScript is just pulling different snippets, and so I'm just uncertain of how to organize my JavaScript folder to load, so that it's not loading 5 different files every time.
As 10 devs, you get 20 answers.
Yeah, I think that was the case. I just wanted in general,
We're still talking.
I think you're right. The probable default answer would be, can you
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
use Gulp or Webpack or some other build tool
like CodeKit or something.
to smash those into one functioning file?
Okay.
Auto optimize. But you can do that.
Do it before you launch the server.
Auto optimize.
If you're building a theme.
Okay, so there is a different
That's
question
right,
though
that's right.
so you've got a whole bunch of JavaScript or a whole bunch of CSS. Some CSS applies to the homepage, some applies to the
That's
blog,
what
some applies to here. Should you have a bunch of CSS files and you only load the homepage on the homepage and the blog on the blog page?
That's what that's the
That's where it's starting to go.
I'm actually against that because of browser caching. So that first page load, if you can get that home page to be fast enough, browser cache all that CSS for you. And then on the next page, load that same CSS, your main file, and then do inline CSS for the little weird things you got. You got some little one-offs too, some inline CSS.
Do we want to start talking about web components?
Yeah, there we go. That's where it's going.
So where it's going now is for each div, like this section, this is going to have its own CSS. It might be duplicated down here, but if it's inlined into the HTML, your browser doesn't go have to download a file.
Right.
But it also means on the next page, if it's not using a table, it doesn't have to worry about that CSS. Right. So the browser can load it as it needs, inlined in the HTML.
Sorry, to say that a different way though, on the root page, you're doing inline all the way down in individual boxes. Therefore, every consecutive page is going to reference that inline of the previous page.
Nope.
Every page
has
every page has
Its own CSS.
Okay.
But if all you need here is this has to be blue,
HTML.
this has to be black text, then your HTML is going to set those style tags inside of the background, right, in its own style. So it's not even downloading CSS anymore. It's just reading it the same way it's reading the HTML. And it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy because that's how the web started.
Yeah.
Where you wrote the CSS inside of every component.
Some of us remember that.
Yeah. And
You
then
did,
they're like,
for
no.
CSS, you just did H1 color black.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, no, we have cascading style sheets, so you can put it all in one big file.
Yeah, I've been told I'm not supposed to do inline. Right.
So
from all these
It's
web schools.
it's coming back around, especially for mobile, when you have to worry about how much bandwidth you're using, how slow the connection is.
Well,
I
stop
can
using
tell you-
Bootstrap and loading
I
your
think
I can tell you why.
You don't need.
I can tell you why. We got a bunch of hotshot young JavaScript devs who refuse to learn from the past.
Dynamic. Yeah.
Bunch of 22-year-old React developers.
So in general,
I have a grudge.
to summarize, I would put my JavaScript on the file that it needs to be ran on. Because if I'm having a revolutionary slider that isn't that revolutionary on the home page, and every single blog post I go load is pulling in the extra jQuery, the extra rev slider JS, et cetera.
So when you're queuing up your JavaScript files, you would use like a PHP to say like, okay, if it's this page template, load these files? Because that's what I've been doing. It just seems
Yeah.
like now I have a bunch of, I have like 7 JavaScript files. And some, only 4 maybe are loading on one page and 2 on another page, but I just didn't know like what the
Yeah.
best practice is.
I think that's perfectly fine.
Well, yeah,
It's also fine to do the proper WordPress queuing inside of your PHP template for the exact files you're using, right? You don't have to put all of that in your functions file. And it's also okay in 6 different templates to reference 4 of the same files. That's actually very good standards of code reuse.
Yeah, the way we're looking at going for that question is kind of a hybrid. Our base CSS is minimal, very minimal. With page builders like Elementor or Beaver Builder or Gutenberg, it's going more towards this component based. So if I load modules on this page, but not on this page, then I've got JavaScript and CSS going here that's only on this page because it's the only place I need it. So in my theme CSS, I don't need those 200 lines of code because only one page is going to get it. So I'm basically componentizing out those pieces. That's where, you know, the page builders, they do a good job of that. Gutenberg's going that route as well.
So that's why
And I think
people
we're
are
gonna
putting
start
their
to see more of
Gutenberg
that.
styles into separate style sheets and not in your main.
Because it's contained within the block.
Concatenated, yeah.
And so it's loading as a component only when
Of
it's
the
needed.
block.
Yeah, Google, the AMP plugin does this on a per page basis as well. AMP does JavaScript processing, post-processing, and CSS post-processing. When it's creating the AMP version of your page, it is purging anything that's not needed just for that page. Because the whole point is to get that tiny little load of that page in a phone over, you know, twisted copper.
And so to complicate things a bit more and simplify them at the same time, HTTP 2 is now a year old, 2 years old. Honestly, this whole...
Using it?
Do what?
Doesn't mean anybody's using it.
Yeah, they are.
I know they are.
So if you're not hosting on HostGator, you're actually probably already using HTTP 2. They just have to pay their
The
service.
shade is being thrown.
I have grudges, what can I say? HTTP 2, the whole, like, we were complaining about the 62 requests. Actually, that's kind of out the window. wpages.com, to be honest, we used to use auto-optimize on there because we had 30 JavaScript files and we could compress it down. We had some issues with it conflicting with other caches. We turned it off. It didn't affect our page speed time because we have HTTP 2. And so HTTP 2 means all these files, rather than doing like 1 at a time or 2 at a time, it's doing 50 at a time. And so it's kind of a, how many files becomes much, it's not nearly as big of a deal.
You had mentioned an off comment, logging is dead. What does that mean?
It's in a new form. I wouldn't say it's dead.
Yeah. So blogging is a great way for non-magazine and article writers to get their voices heard and published. In today's world, there are countless tools to be able to do that instead of a specific blogging platform like Blogger or Google or WordPress. Right? So now, yeah, we have Facebook, you have Medium, you have Quora, you have
Any podcasting.
Yeah, podcasting doesn't matter. So
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the act of being a singular blogger, as in order to read my content, come to my site and give me your traffic, that is going out the window in favor for me doing my best to put my article in as many places as I can.
The reason I ask is, you know, I'm being told on my site to do a couple of blogs.
No, blog.
It's not for the readers, it's for Google.
I mean,
Oh,
it's
so
not entirely true. It's still good to write and put your opinion and publicize yourself, but the shift isn't so much to get traffic to your site, particularly. Or I'm sorry, it's really sorry. Other way around. The shift is no longer I need something to be able to get my content out. It's now I need to write something, post it everywhere in order to drive traffic to my site. So if you can write one article on your personal blog, and then share it on Facebook, share it on Tumblr, tweet the link out, go in Discord, go on Slack, just anywhere you're connected, You go and you blow that link everywhere, then it drives traffic to your site.
But in all honesty, in terms of, you'll get some temporary traffic from when you share it, but unless you're in a service industry, like if you're something like a plumber or a therapist, where people might want to go and read about, like, who are you and what do you do and what's your mindset, unless people are trying to research you as an individual, the blog, its main value is you have all this content, all these keywords, all this stuff that describes who you are and what your business is. Google likes that.
Well, use me as an example.
Yeah.
And then they'll
So if
take
you
the
blog about the
algorithm.
area, if you blog about rooms and designs, and you
But
blog
do I
about
need to blog rather than just write it on my website?
So
blog just means way to do it.
yeah,
What, say again?
a blog is
an easy way to do it.
and then you can keep it categorized and looking nice. My dad started a site, and he knows what I do for a living, and
Oh, this is going.
Yeah, the way you said that wasn't too complimentary.
This is not complimentary towards him. He's been updating the exact same homepage for the last 2 years, adding a new paragraph and a new paragraph, and then pictures of something that happened on a trip and a new paragraph. And so now his paragraph,
It's a single page blog.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome. It's very cute.
it's a WordPress site.
Okay. It's a single page blog.
You have failed as a son.
Exactly what he said. Like, I just want to be able to scroll and see my life. Anyway, so
Clicking is too hard, yeah.
blogging is still good because it keeps it organized. But at the same time, like you said, if you're running your hotel and you're talking about what happened in the local event or something recent that's going on, or just even if you get into like standards and best practices in the industry, when people come to search San Marcos such and such event, the more content you have about it, the higher you could shoot up in the rankings, so that your site is listed there because you're active and talking about whatever they were searching for. That is the value of blogging business-wise. Blogging is shifting in general from the aspect of the writer and just trying to express themselves and have a platform. There are now so many platforms where you can do that.
I don't start a personal blog to talk about my cooking. I used to post pictures on Facebook.
It's what you post on your blog that gets me to your website and you find out about your hotel, which makes me make the reservation, because otherwise I wouldn't find you necessarily. I mean, if there's something specific I'm looking for, if there wasn't, I'd just use Yelp. Who's ever in the top 5, maybe there you go. But if I'm looking up something in particular and I stumble upon your site because of the way you've been writing, that would make me want to find something different rather than necessarily just going to top 5 on Yelp. That's just as a consumer.
I feel like we should migrate to across the hallway.
It's
What do I feel like?
open forum, whatever you guys want to do.
Are y'all still going strong? I want to keep talking? We can wander across the bar and keep going over there.
I'm probably gonna head out.
Before, did everyone have their questions answered that you were hoping to experience or get out of this meetup?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question that doesn't have anything to do with cash.
Perfect.
But not necessarily, it's more of a newbie thing, not.
Okay.
And before people take off, I also have another question. This is supposed to be a lightning talk with a whole work session afterwards. We never worked, we just kept talking. Is that okay, or would y'all
Yeah.
rather work?
No, I mean,
I work.
If you work?
Yeah, I did, I got,
All right.
yeah.
Okay.
Bill, thank you for the pizza. Appreciate it. That was very nice.
Thank you for the knowledge, I learned a lot every month.
That's good.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't want to get that.
It was just about, like I said, I got on that site, I was running, it magically, accidentally happened. And so mainly it's just about beginning resources to look up. I mean, I plan on coming to these events more and more, but what would be the best resources to jump into, book-wise, class-wise, things of that nature that would, I mean,
Brand new beginner?
yeah, I mean, I can, it takes me an hour, it took me an hour to change one picture on my wife's website, just to upload a picture. And I was brave enough to do it by the code, and not WordPress. I mean, I don't even know, I can't tell, I don't think my wife has WordPress, but I don't really know. But I was able to get into the code, and I was actually able to upload an image and get it onto, get the badge on there.
Best, since I've only been doing this for a few years. You'll only do this for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
What
I guess
area do you want to focus on?
Probably not screwing up. So like, okay, first step, I've done this. Okay, now there's all these options in WordPress right here.
Do you want WordPress learning specifically?
Yes.
Oh, well, that's easy, and I should have started this with it. Next week, we're starting our beginners class for WordPress.
Then that,
It's a meetup in Northwest Austin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it used to be at the Austin Baptist Church,
Mhm.
but this year we're doing at Keyworks co-working space, which is like 2 blocks away.
Okay.
So it's still the same general area, and it is a rest of the year, once a month itinerary.
Okay.
It's a
brought
progressive
together.
class.
Yeah,
Yeah.
progressive
Yeah.
class. That's the keyword.
And, yeah.
So.
I mean, I couldn't be more honest when I said it was an accident. Like I pressed the button and it magically appeared. I was able to get content uploaded, but then it's now like, okay, like so I go onto some of these websites that you're searching. Yeah, I've got green across the board. It's fast. It's doing whatever. But that doesn't really tell me anything about.
I also really liked lynda.com.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tons
I
of,
think it's like
Linda
things
is an
we're learning
outstanding
now.
resource for WordPress
Yeah,
knowledge.
there's Carrie Dills. Is,
Carrie Dills is good. She does a lot of Genesis framework stuff.
She does, and
I
then
did her stuff for a long time.
Rand Morton.
Mortensen.
Yeah, Rand Mortensen. He's really
If you just Google WordPress 101, WordPress Beginner,
Two
literally
plus.
some of the two best sites are WP 101 and WP Beginner.
WP 101 sells a plugin that will install on your site that basically walks you through from a how-to perspective as a beginner. That's a great tool.
Okay.
It will help you.
Two
just
plus
use it.
as well. That one has everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
For both beginner and advanced. If you want to know how just something works,
Yeah.
code side or GUI side,
Yeah.
they have both.
I mean, I have done code and I've done WordPress in very, like I read a lot, like to change the line is just absolutely terrifying.
And
Yeah, so then, yeah.
recognize me saying that.
Because I mean, if you look at my wife's site's 8 years old.
Curious if you
We haven't
guys
done
know any
anything
other
to it. I get
ways
phone
you
calls
can
every
build
week
these
and I just don't
blogs
trust
that-
anybody. And then at the same time, I'm like, I need to do this. It's not that we can't afford it, it's just like, so,
Yeah.
so any changes to the website, are just, they're so incredibly slow. Painful, so.
Short answer is there's no place you can go to learn anything. There's no resources.
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, I mean, I can do Premiere, I can do Photoshop, I can do Lightroom, I do all that, no problem, you know, it's, but, you know, I have the book, to be able to do that, I've been doing that for 10 years, no problem. But,
Yes.
you know, this
Yeah,
is.
well, and it's their beta
slightly-
version because they didn't even have.
5.0 beta 3.
Getting over this here takes a while. I'm gonna test that for a while.
Yeah.
Just know ACS
It starts
so
to
well,
click,
it's like I've
and
almost
you
never
realize,
done
oh,
this.
that's how images work, because images are weird.
Yeah.
I like reading the code, like, I understand it,
Yeah.
but it's the,
Had all the tools and framework in it.
it's still,
How to-
yeah, it's still.
You can see how it happened, but then trying to go and change it again is.
Yeah,
Actually
that's,
helped me
yeah.
code better because I learned how to break things down and ACL.
As long as I don't break it, because
Amazing.
I feel like,
On the back end.
Do you have a staging site?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a staging site?
Export it to PHP.
Where do you host
Stick
that?
that in your feed and you're never loading your file.
We host GoDaddy for my wife's
It's all gone
site.
because
I
now you're
host,
just loading PHP code.
Great,
And if
yeah.
you're gonna modify it, you're gonna have to modify it, re-export it, replace it, but that's a good format, it's still usable.
Well, and the other thing,
So, I don't think
related to
GoDaddy
your
has a
question
natural-
is I have.
So when I say a
all
staging
the
site,
blocks,
it's like
you know,
a
in the
copy of your site,
file,
yeah,
I'm
but
wondering
then you
if
can just
you
go and
could
site, that's not.
oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know that I don't, yeah, I don't know that
I bet with GoDaddy though, you can spin up more WordPress sites.
Yes,
Right.
So if you can figure out how
So
to
not
copy
making-
your wife's site to like a play and one, you get that to just a URL that really only you
You mean like
need.
Premiere
Let the styles follow blocks.
It's still posted on GoDaddy.
Oh, okay,
It's still
gotcha.
up there. It's just,
If you're
it's at like,
assembling all the blocks, like in a
mypage
plugin.
site.
Yeah.
Then you can go,
Yeah.
you can tear that
You
apart.
might look at how that
breaks,
works.
and you just copy production back down.
Gotcha.
So
Okay,
it's
yeah,
a safe way to.
gotcha.
CoBlocks.
So like,
It's just Studio Press.
just,
It's probably the most popular block.
you know, I got the mobile
Oh, I think I
version.
ran across that the other day.
Go dig into that and look and see, I haven't done this yet.
Hulu loves the
How are they,
website.
how are they storing the CSS
But
for each
you
block?
can see, I mean, you
Are
can
they
see how
defining all the
they
blocks in a single file?
relative to
Maybe they're doing it that way because it's easier to maintain.
And in the
Kind of like the gradient effect.
All
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Exactly. the criminal practice areas.
Have you used the ACF?
This
I was actually
attorney profile resource and contacts.
Yeah.
Somebody broke it.
I used it some,
Fell-
but not ready
it
to
fell
put it
out
on the
here,
site.
in here. I can see it.
It's tough because I need
And I
to,
can't.
I would need to get my design team on board
You guys drag it
to
over.
like changing the way they design the site.
Yeah, so it's just.
So you're not too many variations
So
at all yet.
my,
I tried it with a couple
so
of sites, but it was
my
like,
wife's
I was gonna have to
gonna
make 16 custom blocks
2 years
just to make the site happen. It's
For-
like,
so-
I'm using.
That's actually, that's not design, it's not like, hey, I'm gonna.
Yeah, it's not next week yet, so it's
I
too
like
much.
Bill Erickson.
So,
I follow what he says.
so I've got mine.
Yeah, he's really great, and he said that, you know, basically like.
So
if
that-
you're having
that book is
sites,
primarily your
it is
free
pointless to
Yeah.
use lots of certificates.
And I just look at final.
Yeah, so basically, I had this one site that I am launching tonight that I'm using. Yeah, there's this plugin.
Again, a theme is rat's nest of
Oh.
a billion options.
So, yeah.
For
you know,
posts, like,
so
they
when we
want-
have these explicit.
It wants all flexibility, right? If we don't put it to them, they're gonna have like.
Yeah, I mean, just like.
Right, yeah, so,
But I see others
that
that
works
are
really well.
like, which is really hard to do. And, you know, like here's an example.
Implemented slowly,
Yep.
For like the pages.
That's,
yeah, that's
Yeah.
where I had trouble on this.
But
I'm not gonna do that. I
it,
really wanted to get
yeah,
It's a
I
must.
don't know, so like,
ACF doesn't
So the
have
issue, though,
nested
is
blocks
Google
yet, so that was like, right,
the number of
explained it.
Yeah.
First of all, I had to do like 16 to 18
So it's just these
blocks,
little
but on
things
top
that
of that, I was
are-
doing a JavaScript container block, and
So,
it wasn't
like,
being
right,
so
so-
yes, and if I can do it all the way, yeah, this would be like a monetarily feasible thing, but right now the development won't allow it.
You said your designers.
So this is part of Wordpress.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
they don't even know about
Website
it. It's
itself.
just like I would have to explain it,
Yeah,
like,
we've got a
it's
Slack
just big
channel.
modular
Okay.
thing, and like,
No.
if
Oh,
they're
yeah,
gonna
yeah,
show,
Okay, but the
Right, yeah,
tutorials
check, yeah.
3 times
So
on
we've
the
got a Slack
site,
channel
can we try and have it
for the
look
WordPress office.
at least somewhat the same each
We're in
time,
there.
or like, maybe
join
we like
that.
swap the
Yes,
layout,
and
and
we
like,
can-
check out
there's
swap
also
the
options
layout,
to do it.
paradigm.
And we've also got a whole
Yeah.
Brad
Okay.
Fox.
Yeah.
What is your favorite? The one above, so you don't have to look where everything.
I mean,
Or just.
it's fine. So,
Yeah.
so like scrolling,
Yeah,
they're high-end,
It's amazing.
web
Yeah.
design.
Brad
and
Fox.
Brad Fox. They have a concept of atomic design.
They send us exactly what you're talking about. Video.
Yeah.
Like, you open up like a birthday atomic thing. They sent us.
So if you look at the page, the commercial page for the collection
And
of
so,
elements,
this last.
so you have your changes in
They
organisms.
sent a,
The main components of your page,
hardcover,
the molecules are made up of that.
Yeah.
So
Unpublished
stuff
version.
on every page of your site.
what should go, like they are just your.
Yeah.
Oh, they are.
Yeah.
So they can say, WordPress
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
whatever you build, we can get whatever you need,
On the
and
development side,
we're willing to spend every page you have,
like
get you the website.
Yeah.
My wife actually was really important. She's got a couple of clients, and when she's not, she says, I want to website, I don't want to think about it. I just want to use it. So we're getting following, we got it for you, just takes my time.
So here's, my thought is,
Yeah.
I don't
They
think,
get out less good.
oh, here's another, my wife's page is like, okay.
Yeah, it depends, yeah, it's totally
We don't care about
improved.
Because
I'm
her
trying
reputation
to
and
make
her
CSS
Yelp
SaaS,
listing,
and
audio, they all have
because
because of the
designers who want to be able to go
we have
in
not
and
cared
do
about the
CSS
website.
like they want to be
But I'm
able to
pretty
like,
sure,
you just put it in,
just, with my traffic.
please what?
I do a cul-de-sac map.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that we may be missing two clients.
I mean, think of it as a browser. I mean, how do they
They like to
Yeah, people are
use
coming there and.
well, I don't use
Site,
like
yeah.
developer tools, but they like to look at the page and then
Oh, no, absolutely
we
not.
try to
No,
find it and
absolutely.
style sheet and
But
try
I know
different
that,
colors
people
because they
will
get like,
look at
once they
it.
see it on the browser, they're like, oh, I want to tweak just these little things, and they basically want to design the browser.
Which is great.
And then they do that, they take a screen grab and say, no, they edit the CSS file and I go in and fix all the errors.
But I don't
Like, what do they do? They want, like, you grab it from the browser, like, what gets generated. And then what they'll do, sometimes they'll just give it to me, it's all CSS file, and I'm like, and I'll have to open it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I swear to God. I get a call every week.
Just, and grass is always great, I mean, like, I was just having, I just asked this a long time
I need
ago.
someone to give me
Making
to.
understand what words, and having a hard time figuring out how to.
Give you the links, kind of go away. Cheap shirts, whatever. And they're like, oh no, we want to stand behind our product and we're
Like, when you run your goal task or whatever it is,
so I'm just like,
compiling
I just like,
your
I wish I had stayed on that Commodore 64
decide whether you want it to
because I would have been doing something totally
And then
different
when
now.
they
I
go
know.
in the browser,
But,
I see this is how it works.
yeah,
Go
so
into
I
the
mean,
browser and.
But I don't care.
This might be a good solution for you
Like,
that,
they would
because
have
the
access
that
to
just come in.
just the, like,
yeah, we don't care about the, we don't care about the website.
.scss.
Oh, that's another thing.
And then edit.
Oh, we need your website, it's on page 10,
So
you were
whenever I
helping, like,
through Java,
how did you
you
find
guys do
this?
some kind of like.
And you're like, oh, well, they went on Yelp and found the number one lawyer, there's all the JavaScript. Number one lawyer,
So those
but, you know,
ones
oh,
run
it's
like
number 10.
with your terminal, whereas,
Yeah, you're done.
it's
So,
like,
I mean, I run it
it's the
every
same thing,
secret
it's
out.
still like running a process that verifies it for you.
It's fantastic.
It's probably,
So
yeah.
I highly recommend it.
I've done
Get a
everything
website.
just in
Google
like
has
text
this.
editor
It needs to be
for
around.
years, so
It's comfortable, isn't it?
yeah,
I like
it's,
that's what-
well, when I look at other people's toolkit sites,
Well,
like all these
that's
extra
all-
folders and code and stuff that I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
that you need all that
Okay, so
stuff.
you spend $300.
Yeah, so that's the part
But
where I
if
think,
it's
like,
just
because I'm like, well, I can
it's
just
probably
do
paid
this.
for.
Oh, it is, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, and we are crushing it. We are, we don't, we're about this house, we're really good. Holy crap, I just want to run CSS.
But you can start slow, you can write your CSS files, and you don't necessarily have to make a huge charge. You can just go, that's fine, that's just a simple variable. I mean, just build one. I mean, personally, I just, I really
Plus money, because
there's far more starts.
money's not.
So that's.
But
It's
you
the reason
don't
that
have to, you don't have to go hard.
We're getting involved in
Well, what we learned, currently I think it's like.
No, Bill's great, Bill's great. Go to Georgetown Meetup. Bill,
Yeah,
we want to
he talks about putting, some
Not just
that you
those
can
editors.
edit the editor side
We have
of
to
the
order
and
we have
front end side.
right now we're
Like,
testing
change what color
Yeah,
it's
sort of
going
like-
to, like, the way it's going to be CSS files. Does that make sense?
So,
Yeah.
to that end,
I was curious, you worked with SAS based on your question earlier about like, should I do different CSS files on this page, and I hadn't thought
I
about
do.
it, but I was thinking that like,
I do a
maybe
function
for
expression.
your,
So it's,
presenting with the
you know,
your
so
thing,
I am just,
but back, whatever, if you could,
Oh.
because
Wait,
automatically
it's not running
add
on
it to
house.
your page
You fix
size,
it.
and then whenever you're like, specific page quality, and then.
Don't
so,
Do that.
I,
That would be great, 'cause I already took them so very different page anyways.
but I have.
But then I smash it all
Right.
together
Right.
and I had like
It's post CSS.
I mean, I've pushed DNS
Which is what
several
makes
times,
it
you know,
easy.
I've done all these little
spit
breaks
out
out.
like, how
The
about
best compliment I've ever
CSS,
received
about
is that,
CSS.
yeah.
No,
And
that's
it would grab,
exactly.
I
so I
called
need to grab it from like a
RIT,
couple of
I
different
worked at
spots,
Delta.
like a base style sheet, and then
Yeah.
like.
Talking about in the browser, not.
Oh,
Talking about,
Hey, it's,
no,
it's
it's
done.
done. Like,
So then we're going out, whatever.
Yeah,
Separate.
instead
They went to the
instead of like
supervisor.
writing out as
Yeah,
just styled out CSS,
the
it would be,
things
it
down.
would.
And it's
it would
like,
be
oh,
like
Daniel
for
is down,
like,
or Jim is down.
is there-
And when I found out that, I was like, that is the highest compliment I could ever offer. You know, I mean, it's just like, I'm willing to do as much as I can do without being electrocuted or absolutely losing my
Can you
mind.
do anything like that with SAS?
I'm willing to do any of that, but you know,
Maybe like, just don't render the
there's some,
CSS
I can
if.
certainly areas that go
You would have to write it within.
because I know exactly what IT is gonna tell me.
Yeah.
So you would do an inline
Reset,
CSS, you
enter
write it
this, you know, do all, I know stuff. I absolutely know.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I mean,
Step six that I'm not willing to do.
For digital gain, I mean, if you
Yeah.
have
I'm willing to
to
put
massive
my name
Yeah.
on the
With
line
thousands of customers.
for anything that I feel I'm
Terms that,
personally.
so what Amber.
In the moment I know it's not within my scope of practice, and I could seriously cause them
Where
damage.
it literally says, any CSS not being used in space.
So, yeah, that's what I
Library
tell
that
you.
runs that, you can download.
WordPress,
that.
so all of us in this room, everybody.
And that's where you would.
Yes, we're not computer, we didn't come
Yeah.
look through this folder, like every,
Okay.
it's not a single item.
Oh, yeah. It's people who are for that.
Okay.
WordPress developers, WordPress community, it hasn't built the space, but it builds a page, runs in a virtual browser. Super it's not trivial, but it's very
Very cool, especially for like a very image or like styling site. You know, if you're using inline CSS like a blog, then you can use Sass.
Like, I want to start doing CSS. Right?
and to render that block. So I only have Sass design about
I'm not saying like that.
No, I'm just saying that, I mean, I would
now we're saying, oh, we can take that if I render multiple.
But I still have
But I can use Sass. Thank you for your
the jab is one file.
There's a lot of separate Sass for this one. I can have them all in. So this is code kit or whatever. I can train it. That's what this file.
You know, I was
So
able
it'll
to
sit in the process.
That
way you took it, you had to keep everything 3 hours
to read the code, and it's where you need to figure out where to split all that things out.
Okay, and you don't have to go back through every one to it and change this in there.
I mean, you have to script it out, like,
Yeah.
I seems
like there'd be a lot of initial setup and then you build it all your time.
So, I mean, this is all.
Yeah, it might take a while to actually do it, I mean.
And the reason for that is because
Yeah.
we're not doing this elderly.
Anyways, I'm Leslie. Hi, nice to meet you, Susan. Nice to meet you, Pat. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet my language. That's great. Pat, Susan. Yeah, this is like I've been doing that for 3 WordPress meetups for years. It's crazy. Every week I learned so much. I learned so much. Just like I got to compete more often. Oh, yeah, I was thinking about going for a run club. Yeah.
They're small.
It's nice to start with people who really care. The timing is a little hard because they usually have like 6 meetups.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
I live way north of
That's nice for you.
I wish I could get there.
Oh man, I was late to this because the parking is crazy down here. Maybe I'll get to the first one.
No, it's funny part. It's hard.
So, it sounded like you worked for
I work for Craft Paper. Most Craft Paper.
There's only 13 with child, you know.
I grew up over in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, okay.
All my
Our website.
All my grandparents growing up, all my first parents growing up were cars.
Oh,
I had friends that become first
Then you get
Yeah, 8 years. It became an inside joke. 8 years.
I actually really listened to
The last 8 years.
I've worked by myself for 7 years.
I had so many friends.
I did 7 years of my own.
That's the
So
same
do
time
you
when we work for a
When you
team.
started getting.
Yeah, and I actually worked for a team on hiring.
we're working out.
But you don't need a job. You want a job. Sorry, this is my boss's car. She was like, oh, that's smart. Smart. Talk to my car.
Criminal defense attorney.
Help. It's just, I'm the only one here. And a very small agency and like. Yeah. We're not very big. I'm the only developer, which is more of a team. Yeah. I feel the same way. So anyways, if you're interested,
So
we
it
we have a lot of websites on our deck. We mostly do
Let's just outsource the government functions.
like service
So it started out-
websites, like
so it started out your own
but lately we've gotten a few that we're really excited about that are for various job rescues.
And then your name's
And they need to do more.
No, you're not required.
Like screening an email that has like the status of the shelter, checking the ID number of the dog against our existing database, updating based on that, and then taking in like donations. Not impossible, but kind of challenging for me to do by myself. So I need some help. Okay, awesome. This is really good to know. Yeah. So again, I'm the thin one. This is my
email her, design good.
vendors, whatever. So it's still, so there's some oversight. That's what, but now, it's part of the vendor's office, so that's what's going on.
It seems really great, and then the client was saying they wanted to
The problem
review
is
the
that
CRM.
they only want to, it's, so you can imagine.
Programs there,
Some
in the No, it's specifically donations, I want to say it's like, donate, or like something like that, is what it's called, but it already handled payment processing, and it felt redundant to give, and I'm like,
And along
you
with
guys are
that,
already gonna pay, like, it's gonna be crazy, $200 a month for this, like, CRM, yeah, I'll just like embed the forms that way.
30% part of it.
That makes sense.
That's my
Of
plan,
which we
I
don't
don't
know
know, but
what
also
type of
they
stuff
want
we're
to
going
sell
to.
this,
So,
like,
we're taking the position, a lot of the criminal
like,
customers are,
do we really wanna do this for our website? I don't know.
there are things that call for
Yeah.
but you can imagine the politics
Was
of
it?
all of
If
it.
we're talking about website, that would be
So-
perfect.
This is one of the things that we are passionate about.
But if they basically, they have it and they turn on their site.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And you
Start
already
playing
have,
with
you lock in, and they all use the same theme, parent-child theme, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Driver's
Network
license
activates plugins,
and
and
is killing
then each site has their own.
Great.
Personal story.
Yes.
I've got people.
Perfect, problem solved, thanks.
I got people every day who are calling me
I'm sorry.
because they are.
Well, I was also secretly looking for an excuse to like
And they
build
don't
a
know how to
custom site and like build it in React, but I already know WordPress.
Now, everybody wants to
I'll
go.
probably do better doing more React, a little bit, a little bit. Right, because it's not, it's like not that much information, it like doesn't need to do that much for your laws, it's not like they need to be like editing content very often, they're not going to use the backend for like tracking the job hires. They have a CRM for that already, it's like pretty user friendly for that.
That's the only reason we get
But
multi-site.
Why do I need a website?
Build out emergency trauma centers got a site like
The idea is that
you're
the problem is that, you know, the idea is that, you know, you are helping indigent care,
Okay.
which you probably caused by
But
having
we might,
to.
isn't that be helpful if they were like trying to sell it?
The criminals pay you to fix their problem.
Exactly. Oh, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody understands
the base one.
Yeah.
You know, so that's one of the things I say, I want to make, hopefully, one of the things.
I'm trying to make a clone of template sites. What site name, site name, use admin, but.
Even if they're all running the same base theme and just have the trial page off of it, if I'm making like a local change, it would apply to all of them. Like if they decide to change like a brand, whatever the parent company is.
Hence, I'm here.
This is where like we were talking about this, and do the in there, and then you have like.
It's not.
But the main theme is it's just like locked in.
No, it's the system, yeah.
You're like upgrading where you start.
It is.
Back when now, you do one, so every single site.
There's the same yeah, and it's not, it's not the only thing.
It's just making me think that I wish that I built a lot of sites that I built in the last couple of years differently. How do you cope with wanting to like fix everything?
One more credit install and a lot of
Oh,
that
that's,
plugins
yeah.
don't play something.
No. Socialism. And that's just,
I need to like change every site I've ever built.
Every 6 months. Thanks for, I'll be definitely.
Yeah.
You'll do it.
And I used to be able to say, oh, it was the developer before me, it's their fault, like, that I need to redo your entire site right now. No, I can't say that, how long have you been with this company? Year and a half, almost 2.
And then we do,
Are you their
that's every
person
month, every
also?
month here.
Yeah, well, sort of, they had a guy they were working with, but he was pretty remote. Like, he basically just worked for them, but he was working from like Ohio,
With,
Iowa.
switch between dev stuff like this. This is
They were like, that's kind of like my situation, I've worked with about 4
if you
different
speak
graphic
the
designers
language,
on a
eventually
contract basis, but there's one that I've worked with for 7 years, I've been here for my contract. Gotcha. It's, I'm remote, they're in New Mexico, and, oh, okay, so not, you know. I went face to face with people, like, actually.
All right, everyone.
Where's that?
Trapped in here because of this guy. He cleaned up
We all don't have to go home though. It's a hotel, there's spots to keep talking, to keep the party going.
Let's go, just straight across. Let's walk across.
Yeah.
I am following.
Hey, Ryan, are you gonna stick around?
Yeah.
Right there.
I got a free pass tonight, so. Wife's got the kids, I'm good. Me too, me too.
Before you go, can I get this comment? Whatever you're gonna say.
So are you talking about?
Any, just people, I mean, any comment?
It's not at all. Seems to be readily accessible and straightforward. What do you think to do? Change design?
No, this is the new site.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it looks fine. I mean, obviously, we're on Wi-Fi, we're not on a cell network, so. Actually, you know what? I guess I am on a cell network.
Thank you.
It's running pretty fine.
Are you gonna hang out with us?
I'm not-
I gotta take care of the dog.
If someone told you it was outrageously slow, I think that's a wild exaggeration.
Well, at the last meeting, they laughed at me because I said I thought it was fast. They said it's pretty slow.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, heavily optimized sites, load and, you know.
Do you want to keep
blink
these?
an eye.